Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of HCA's Horrifically Horrifying. I'm Kevin Taft from Edge Media Network, and I am here with my faithful co-host, Heather Wixson of Daily Dead.
Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Heather.
And we are back.
We are back for another fun-filled hour. And this time we decided to stick with the June theme of It's Pride. As you can see,
it is Pride.
Fantastic Pride disco ball tree. I wouldn't say Christmas tree, but so I moved that over so everyone can enjoy it. That's pretty much all I have for Pride in my apartment, but happy Pride, everybody.
Happy Pride.
And I like her Fangoria shirts much better.
Yes,
I feel like you ruled on that one.
I bought this last year and I totally love it. It's funny because like I'll get people like to comment. They'll be like, because usually it's just the red font or something, and they're like, oh, they're like, that's fun. I'll be like, oh, it's for Pride. And then some people kind of give you a look, and it's like, yes, in the horror community, we're very accepting and we like to be supportive. I know everybody thinks we're scary and we're going to like steal your soul and your babies and embalm weird bodies in like our basements. But that's only on the weekends.
It's truth.
Yeah.
And there are a lot, like, gays love horror. And I feel like I was thinking about it the other day, and I'm sure, I know there have been tons of articles about this type of thing, but I feel like it is twofold. One, we like strong women for some reason. We just do. I don't know why that just is, but we do. So seeing the final girl, get her day is always good. And also, like, there's the othering factor. Like, we feel like we've been othered our whole lives, and so do most of the monsters. Whether they're good or bad, they're still the other, and we kind of understand them. But we also, I feel like a lot of the people that are fighting the monster have differences about them too. So we're always like rooting for them. So I think maybe just intrinsically it comes up, like, we just like horror. I don't know. Most of my gay friends like horror.
Yeah, I think that, I think you're onto something. And again, I can only speak to a limited scope of this just because I'm sort of from an outsider looking in. But I think, all of us, as much as we like to say we like, oh, we're fine, like doing our own thing or whatever, I think intrinsically, like, we all want to belong to something that feels accepting to us. And I think for so many people from all walks of life, horror is that, because it accepts everything. It accepts the freaks, it accepts, the smart kids, accepts the nerd kids, and everybody can kind of come together and love horror, regardless of who you are, where you come from. And again, I'm not a scholar in this subject, so again, my understanding is a bit limited. But the roots of horror are basically were laid by queer writers. We're talking centuries ago. And so I think inherently horror has sort of these LGBT roots in it, regardless. Like so when somebody goes, like, if you listen to the horror queers on Bloody Disgusting, like, and they may have a reading on a movie that is so different than mine, but then when you think about it, you're like, oh, I could definitely see that. And I think there's a lot of validity to that, especially when you look at the roots of horror. And before we were talking, you mentioned somebody like James Whale, who, basically was sort of this foundation of universal monster horror. And, he was a gay director working at a time where you really shouldn't be a gay director out and working in Hollywood according to their standards.
And putting stuff in his movies that was blatantly gay. I mean, Bride of Frankenstein, and I did watch the old Dark House, the Dark Old House.
The Old Dark House, I believe.
Yeah, I watched that. I mean, it was kind of a bizarre movie, but I mean, it definitely felt, there was definitely a character that I'm like, oh, he's like the gay friend, and then there's the girl that he hangs out with, because it was very obvious she liked another guy, and when they would talk about her friends, it was like, well, yeah, we're not together. And so it's very like,
yeah,
he's gay. So that was it. And what I didn't feel like, I mean, I'd read about that it was a little bit more coded. That's the only thing I really got out of it. But I did notice it in Bride of Frankenstein when I watched it for the Don't Be Mad first time last Halloween. I had never seen it before.
Look, that happens so many times on social media where everyone's like, oh, don't hate me, but I'm just watching this for the first time ever. Like, first of all, there's been thousands of movies for us all to have seen every single possible movie. Like, no.
It's a classic, though. I should have seen it. by now.
Yeah, but like, you know, I think there's also something like if you grew up where like they played the monster movies on Saturdays,
Yeah.
like your accessibility is more, you know, you have that where like they really weren't releasing a lot of the Universal monster movies on VHS in the 80s.
Right.
So they were kind of relegated to, oh, if you happen to catch it on TV, maybe you're going to see Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Right.
You know, but it wasn't most, I mean, I don't think any of my video stores had the classics like that. Like I think the furthest back I can remember, I mean, no, I think there was a Nosferatu, but
Yeah. Ours
as
did
a
too.
whole, I don't remember ever seeing Universal monsters at my video store. I could be wrong though, but
It's funny. I worked at a video store for many years and managed one, and I don't know if I ever saw them either, quite honestly,
yeah.
because it was like videotape. Like, you know, it would have been probably for you too, right? Videotape.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, that's funny. I never thought about that.
Yeah. So like if I caught them, it happened to be that they were on TV or something like that. Like it wasn't, you know.
That's how I saw Creature from the Black Lagoon in 3D. They
Ooh.
sold the glasses at the local 7-Eleven, the red and blue glasses.
Oh, that's so much fun.
Yeah, it was like a Friday night thing that they did on our local channel.
I missed that. It was funny. Somebody just brought this up because somebody was like, oh, post a photo that shows that you're like fashionable or whatever. And I had this photo of me in like 3D glasses. And at first I was like, why am I wearing 3D glasses? And then I realized it was when the Rolling Stones did like a 3-song set like on TV, but it was in 3D.
Oh yeah.
And it was like 1990. And until like I found that photo, like I had never thought about that. But it was so interesting that like there was these certain times where like they're like, oh, let's throw 3D on TV. Like I don't think that I mean, I don't even know if new TVs could do that. So
they can do the red and blue one as long as the movie shows it that way, but
okay.
not the other. And I feel like if it's a color movie, it doesn't look as good as the black and white. Was much easier to do the depth.
To differentiate.
Yeah.
That. Interesting.
But yeah, I mean, it would still give you a headache by the end of it. I was like, oof. But I think I had a Polar Express when it first came out on DVD that had the red and blue glasses, but it was annoying. Yeah, it didn't look good. So
I still have the ones for Freddy's Dead in my DVD case. So
nice.
that one's in there. So
very nice. So speaking, all right, so let's do a couple topics. Let's talk about, why don't we just start with what we kind of started already talking about, is like movies that are either kind of coded or maybe not so coded, as we were talking about earlier.
Yes, very overt, maybe perhaps.
Overtly, yeah. I mean, and we can just start there, and which is not going to be a surprise to most people, but Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2.
What?
What's it called? Freddy's
Revenge.
Freddy's Revenge. And you know what's funny is, I saw it in the theater opening weekend as a closeted gay kid at the time. I think I was in college, but I was fairly in the closet to most people. I mean, actually, side note, the funniest thing about that was it was a packed theater. And as soon as the main girl turned, like she had her back to the door when he opened the door, and she turned around and somebody goes, Meryl Streep?
Which is funny because I've seen people make that comparison these days.
Apparently.
Oh
she doesn't like it. But
you wouldn't want to be compared to Meryl Streep. Who are you?
Yep. She's almost actually prettier than Meryl Streep too.
Yeah.
But I thought that was funny because I just remember just bursting out laughing. But even I thought like there was something about that movie. I mean, I didn't love it at the time because I thought the first one was so good. I was like, it's a little disappointing. But I remember being almost uncomfortable because I was like, if I'm picking up on it, is everybody else picking up on it? And then I thought there was going to be some like animosity or negativity just on comments people might make when I was leaving. So it was a weird experience. I've rewatched it since, and now I just find it amusing. But
yeah. As a kid, I mean, because I didn't see it in theaters, so I saw that one on VHS, which would have been like 86. I was 8. I knew nothing. I just thought there was a lot of butts in it, so that was weird. And I just remember thinking Robert Russler was like super, super cute.
Yeah, no, he was hot.
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, as an 8-year-old, nobody's
That's
hot.
True.
They're cute, you know. The Corey Hames and the Corey Feldmans, they're cute, you know. Yeah. As a grown woman, yes, I would totally agree with you on Robert Russler because you see it in Vamp also as well.
Yeah. Still cute too.
I know, and I feel weird saying it because like I'm friends with him, so this is weird now. Now he's turning into something weird, which is like the story of my life. But yeah, like I just remember it feeling weird, but I didn't remember like the text of it being there because again, I wouldn't have known any better.
Right.
Um, Although something like Sleepaway Camp, which is a movie we should talk about, like that to me, I got that that was what I've heard reference to as like back in the old terms of like gay or transvestite, or you know what I mean? Which again, I
Right.
don't even think that's right because that would be in those terms transsexual. So it's like it's people back then were just throwing around like certain key
Words.
phrases without actually explaining, understanding the meaning behind them.
Correct.
Which
Yeah.
now today we're a little better equipped for it. So I got Sleepaway Camp, totally missed Nightmare on Elm Street till I was like in high school. And I remember just thinking like it was finally when Jesse's on the bed and he's doing his dance and he's got the little thing and it like does this. And I was like, oh. And then it just goes from there. And I was like, oh, and then we're in the leather bar with leather daddy Bob Shea,
Yep. Yep.
which is amazing. I don't know how they talked him into wearing that outfit, but it's amazing. I want somebody to create like an action figure of Bob Shea in the leather daddy outfit.
Yeah.
That would make me happy. And I'm guessing some few other people out there too. But yeah, so it was one of those like that one totally went right past me as a kid.
I mean, I think I picked up on it, but I wasn't like I never thought it. I think I just thought it was me. I
Mm.
didn't think it was a thing until later on when it became more known as a thing, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, that was the kind of the gay one. And then I finally rewatched it and was
And
like,
you know what's actually what I'm really happy about is like, in terms of like when we have discussions about what exactly gay horror is, like 10 years ago, there was maybe like a handful of movies you could really talk about. And these days, like, as we were talking about like different movies to talk about for this episode, like there are so many more movies and we're getting so many more every year. And I'm like, that's really cool because I feel like we're not we're not haven't hit that quite equality yet, but there is a lot more. And I
right,
really appreciate that because I think that's just something that shows again that the horror genre is far more progressive than, sort of mainstream movie fare. Like you're never gonna get in a Marvel movie that is completely about a gay superhero. It's just
right.
never gonna happen.
In our lifetime, probably not. I mean, eventually,
I
I
mean, I
think.
know Brie Larson as Captain Marvel is pretty coded to it, but it's not like she's going off to having a romantic evening with her girlfriend. Like that's
Right,
never going to happen. I mean, nobody has romance really in Marvel movies anymore anyway, but
right.
you know, so which is a bummer. I was actually thinking about this because I was watching Interview with a Vampire
Oh,
to prep for this. And I wish we could talk about because I was thinking of like that era of like really good like 90s erotic thrillers where you just didn't know who was going to hook up with who.
yeah.
I mean, it was
And
just
that's true.
it was
The,
great.
yeah, Enter for the Vampire is super, super gay.
Dude,
I read the book too, before, and that was like, I loved the book so much just because it was, it hit all the things that I liked. There was so much like homoeroticism and or blatant homo whatever. I mean, it was kind of bisexual. It was very all over the place. Um, but and that mixed with the horror, like this was, I was in. I knew when they did the movie, I was like, they're probably not going to go full tilt with that. But there were moments where I was like,
you actually wondered if Antonio Banderas and Brad Pitt were going to make out. I
yep.
still do. Were you a Lestat, a Louis, or were you an Armand?
I was, well, what's funny is, I mean, in the books, I would say Lestat.
Yeah.
But Tom Cruise with the hair, he didn't really do it for me. So I would have been Louis. I probably would have been Armand.
I'm an Armand.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
dark, swarthy.
Me too.
That's my thing.
Yeah. I knew we were bound to be best friends. No, seriously, Antonio Banderas in like 94, 95
Yeah.
was like everything. Like
Yep.
it was between, because I didn't see this in theaters, so I saw it on VHS. So I rented it in 95. So 95, it was Desperado.
Oh
Then
yeah.
I saw this, and then I rented Never Talk to Strangers, which is like an erotic thriller that he did with Rebecca De Mornay. And they have the most inconvenient, painful looking sex, but it's super hot. It's like on a chain link fence and it looks like it's just like, oh, my back, oh, that's gotta hurt, but you're like, oh, but it's visually fantastic. But 95 was all about Antonio Banderas.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, but it still really, really works. Like I think about like movies like Interview with the Vampire that were able to be like genre movies, but these like big, huge pop culture moments and the actors involved. And it made me realize like, I don't think we're gonna see that much anymore. And it kind of bums me out.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, I felt like it almost seemed like it could have been, but it was a lot of unknowns at the
Yeah.
same time. But it felt like it could have gotten to that point had they been a little bit better. I mean, in my opinion, um, I just don't think it quite hit the mark, but close.
I think that they were really hoping the adults were gonna do that. And
Yeah.
then Bill Hader, which I guess this fits in because there was sort of the Eddie and
Yeah.
Richie relationship that they built up in that movie. So Bill Hader hits really hard in terms of the casting, and then I think Jessica Chastain, and I think the rest of the adult cast, like, I mean, no offense to them, they're all really good, but they weren't like the it people. Like, do you remember when Mobsters came out and like every hot 20-year-old actor was in that movie? Like
Yeah.
that was a big deal. Like, and now it's just like every other movie is either Timothy Chalamet or Tom Holland, and they're great actors, but I'm just like, I need more, where are all the
Yeah.
hot boys at? So
Yeah. No, I
that sounds
agree.
like a creepy old woman thing to say, but
It's okay.
I'm just
I'm
saying,
the
like,
creepy old gay man.
so, but
Single.
I just made me realize like the star power that we were able to experience like growing up,
Yeah.
and actors who were willing to do that. Like Brad Pitt in 94, 95, like as he is ready just to burst through, like Legends of the Fall is waiting, it's going to happen. And he's willing to go into a movie where he's like, I mean, literally, you could have maybe passed a piece of paper between him and Antonio Banderas' lips. And that for that time though, that was a pretty risky thing for him to do for his career. It was a risky thing to put in a mainstream movie, horror or not. And and for me, it feels like a really big thing, especially at that time, because theatrical movies really weren't going there. I mean, they're still kind of not, like,
Yeah.
unless they're very specific or Oscar, they're heading toward the Oscars. Like, I just don't think, it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it's true. It's
People
true.
need to loosen up a little bit.
I felt like, and I know we talked about this too. I feel like with Fright Night, people focus on the Jerry, and what's his name? What's his buddy's name?
Oh, Billy Cole.
Yeah, I feel like they focused on that, but I always thought it was more Ed, Evil Ed. I felt like that moment in the alley when he's, Jerry's like, "Come with me," and he was almost like accepting his sexuality. And that moment of like he's crying because he's uncomfortable and he doesn't understand it, but he's willing to go for it. I thought that, I think, even hit me at the time that I originally saw it, and it hits me every time I see it. And I feel it's so sad to me, just that moment of, because he's so confused and so lost, but also willing to let everything go to experience what he feels like he needs to.
Yeah. And I think the argument could be made that there's a lot of that movie where I think he's in love with Charlie. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a part of him that you kind of think seems really happy when he thinks that there's problems between Charlie and Amy, where he
Yeah.
thinks maybe could be like his moment. And when he realizes like, oh no, this isn't, I think that's when he realizes like, well, maybe I can find this happiness elsewhere.
Yeah.
But there's definitely, like, I would say, especially in the school scenes, like there's definitely like moments where like you get the sense that Ed is very much in love with his best friend.
Yeah.
And so to have him find sort of that outlet through Jerry, who has this relationship with Billy Cole. But again, I think, it's funny because now we've talked about this a bit. There's a lot of vampire movies very much are steeped in, with these sort of LGBTQ like undertones to them, which I think inherently makes vampires gay. Because, well, I mean, if you think about it, because like so much of horror is tied to sex and sexual repression. In vampires, they feed on everybody,
Mm-hmm.
which means, as as somebody's like their gate swings both ways. So who better to like embody, you know, somebody like not being straight would be vampires because they're
I mean,
consuming everybody.
they consume everybody, and they're also, they live so long. I mean, you might as well try everything.
Yeah.
You know, why not?
I mean, you know, sure. I keep my options open if I was going to live for 600 years or you know,
Right? I'd be like,
however
yeah,
long.
not gonna
Like,
hurt to
sure.
try. Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
So what else do we want to talk about? Should we talk about queer directors?
Yes. And we had a little
We
bit
have
of
a
a
lot.
discussion
We
in
did.
terms of what's really unfortunate is when we both were looking at this, there are not a lot of gay female directors out there
For horror. For horror.
for horror,
Yeah,
which
sure.
is kind of sad. And it makes, again, I don't know if that's a product of the industry where men are sort of allowed some space and women just can't because we have to be so in step with everything that if we step outside that box a little bit, we're viewed differently.
Right.
It's interesting, but there's a ton of male
Yeah,
directors out there.
tons. Like we got Kevin Williamson, Clive Barker, Don Mancini, which I don't even think I knew until recently.
Which is
Chris
funny because
Landon.
did you finally watch Seed of Chucky?
I did. Right. I
Yes.
did. I did.
Okay.
So that
Okay.
had that was not even coded. That was just like, I don't know if I'm a boy or a girl. Poor
Yeah.
little, what's his name?
Glenn and Glenda.
Glenn and Glenda.
I would die for Glenn and Glenda. Do you understand? Like I love Glenn and Glenda. I've like every time I've had to interview Don for like the new Chucky movies, I'm just like, Don, just when are we doing Glenn and Glenda? He's like, but everybody hates Seed of Chucky. I'm like, I don't care. I love Seed of Chucky. We need Glenn or Glenda back. And what's really been fun is seeing so many people embracing that character like over the last few years.
Yeah.
In realizing what Seed of Chucky was trying. I mean, you know, we had this discussion, but Seed of Chucky is basically Don Mancini remaking an Ed Wood movie via, you know, John Waters. Like that's what
Right.
it is. So much that John Waters is in the movie.
Isn't it?
Yeah, which is even more amazing. I love Seed of Chucky, and everybody always kind of like craps all over it. It makes me really mad because there's some good stuff in that movie.
It was definitely not what I expected, because it was almost just like not an animated movie, obviously, but it was really all the puppets.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, really, it was just them through the whole movie and Jennifer Tilly, and pretty much not a lot of other people. They came in and out and stuff. Maybe toward a little more towards the end. And it was like nice to see Jennifer Tilly like goofing on herself and looking amazing as always. It was I feel like it petered out a little bit for me towards the end. I was amused by it, and I did like Glenn slash Glenda. I thought that was just kind of an interesting character. The voice work by Dominic, what's his name?
No, it's Billy Boyd.
Billy Boyd.
Yes.
I thought that was really like, he did a really good job of making it very gender neutral. I mean, I was amused by it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not one of the.
Movie. It was weird.
Yeah, I mean, and I get it. It's a little more broad comedy in some strokes, but I was okay with that because, like, Bride of Chucky is just so spot on, perfect. Like, I'm okay with getting a little silly.
Yeah.
I was fine with it. I mean, there's some references in it that are dated, but a lot of movies at that time have the same thing because everybody had to put some sort of pop culture reference in.
Right.
But I love Seed of Chucky. Like I'm really hopeful because I think somebody had tweeted out about Glenn and Glenda at the beginning of Pride, and Don made some sort of mention of it on Twitter that maybe Glenn and Glenda will show up in the TV series.
Oh.
And I mean, you also right now you have Fiona Dourif. Did you see the end of Cult of Chucky?
I haven't seen Cult of Chucky.
Okay, first of all, Cult of Chucky is really good.
I
wasn't super in love with Curse, but I feel like Cult goes like bananas.
Curse is the one in the house, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's in a wheelchair.
Yes, Fiona Dourif.
Okay, I saw that one. Okay.
Yeah. So her character's back in the next one, and she's in like a mental health facility, and Chucky's back, but then there's like all kinds of craziness. But it's hard to talk about this without ruining it for you, and I'm sorry, but the movie ends. It's not going to ruin like everything that comes up to it, but it's like the most amazing thing ever. So that movie ends with Jennifer Tilly picking up Fiona Dourif in the car with the Tiffany doll, and Fiona Dourif is actually being possessed by Charles Lee Ray, which is the soul of the character
Right.
that her father plays. So as she's walking out, she's literally playing her dad, getting into a car with Jennifer Tilly, and I was just like, holy shit, this is incredible. And it's the ride to get there is amazing. I highly recommend it. But it was like, again, it's sort of this playing with genders, playing with sort of the roles that we sort of expect for women, and she kind of comes walking out like all like tough guy, and then basically gets in the car with Jennifer Tilly. They might even kiss. And it was just like, I was like, bravo, yes. And I love that he went there. I highly recommend it. It's just it's just one of these things where like, I love how the Chucky movies have become really progressive in a way that like I've never really, because there's always a handful of horror fans who like, they complain that they don't want woke stories in their horror and all this other BS, which I'm just like, you obviously haven't been paying attention to the horror for the last 80 years, but whatever. But like, I haven't seen anybody complain about the Chucky movies. So I don't know if Don has nailed some magic formula, but like even there's a lot of fans out there that get a little persnickety about this kind of stuff, which drives me crazy. But yet the backlash against Chucky just really hasn't happened,
Yeah,
which
I
is
haven't
kind
heard
of
much
great.
about it. I mean, I heard a little bit when the remake came out or the reboot came out, but
Yeah.
it was more about that in particular.
Which was just a bunch of people complaining without actually seeing it. So
True. I mean, I didn't like it, but I liked the concept of it because I thought that made sense for a reboot. Like I got it, but I wanted it to be like scarier and there is a point where I do feel like when a doll talks like a doll but says they're going to kill you, to me is creepier than a
guys,
voice. So
yeah,
that's when I first
like Brad Dourif yelling at you, like, I believe he's gonna kill me because it's Brad Dourif.
True, but even that, when I first saw Child's Play, because I saw it in New York opening weekend, I don't know why. I think I was visiting a friend in college, and I mean, I enjoyed the heck out of it. But I remember thinking like, oh, I kind of wanted it to be a doll voice because I thought it would be creepier. But then I sort of fell into, okay, now I get what this movie is. Like, so it wasn't. It was just I had to change my expectation of what it was.
Yeah.
And then I, obviously liked them. I really like Child's Play.
Yeah, I like the reboot or the remake, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a big fan. I just thought it was, everybody kind of nitpicked on certain things, and I was like, well, that was kind of the point of it. So I had fun with it. In the scene when it's wrapped up in the gift wrap, and that's the head, like they're just staring at it, like wondering if somebody's gonna open it. Yeah, and I thought Mark Hamill did a really good voice. That was very different.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I went around singing the song for a good 2 months too. So it gets in your head and it just sticks there. So
Does it?
It does. So I actually have in the office, I have they sent me a mask of the reboot Chucky, which is way more unnerving than just regular Chucky, which again, I think people miss the point that was supposed to be, that was the joke of it. So, because like the original one, he looked like the My Buddy dolls, where this one is supposed to be like weird, grossly exaggerated because of what toys are these days. So, so maybe I'll throw it on one time and
great.
Like that. That'd be fun.
That'll be an interesting episode.
Yes, we should do that for Halloween. Like each Halloween episode, we'll do like a different mask.
A mask.
All right. Yeah.
We'll wear a werewolf mask.
All right, I've got a bunch. So I've got masks from like You're Next and Tragedy Girls and The Strangers. So I can have some fun.
You're gonna have to send me a couple because I don't have any.
All right. We'll do that.
We were talking about something, and I was going to say something about. You're talking about Child's Play, and then about
directors.
How weird. It'll probably come back to me. It had to do with. Yeah, wow. Lost it.
All right.
I know. Wow, way to go. Um, so yeah, so we're talking about gay directors. And of course we have Christopher Landon too, of course, who did
Yes.
Freaky and Happy Death Day 1 and 2. Um, and he, he put uh, kind of a, I guess, non-binary character in Freaky. And that actually, um, I liked what they did with also that scene in the car where,
They kiss.
they kiss. And I just thought it was like, I was like, at first I was a little slightly uncomfortable only because of the age difference. And I was like, well, that brings a whole nother element to it. But I thought it was an interesting, like, you know, they just loved each other for the personality was there. I don't
Yeah.
know. I thought that was an interesting
Like their
thing for him to
souls
do.
were meant to be together.
Yeah, and it worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
It's interesting too, because like I want to hate Vince Vaughn because like I know all the things about him otherwise, but he's really good in Freaky. Like he's really good. Like I can't even believe how good he is in that movie. And that scene alone is that to me like was just such a huge moment because again, we don't see a lot of sort of acknowledgement, of certain things in mainstream movies anymore. And I just thought that was such a really lovely, tender moment.
Mhm.
And I was like, damn it, Vaughn. Like, I really want to dislike you, but you're really good right now. But yeah, I just thought he was so good in that. And just that scene alone is just really makes the movie worthwhile.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
For sure.
but
I
yeah,
like that.
Christopher Landon also did the marked ones too for Paranormal.
Oh, right, right.
Yes.
Yep. And that was the kind of spin-off one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I really like
And I
that
liked,
one a lot too.
yeah, I like that one too. That was a good one. You know me, I like the paranormal activity
Yes.
movies. I'm a fan.
And also did the hugely underappreciated Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse.
He did that one.
He did.
And wait, did I see that?
I don't know. No, not many people did. I loved it though.
That's weird because I would feel like I should have seen it, but now I don't think I did.
Yeah, that was really good. It there's there's some really fun stuff with zombie kitties in there and stuff. Yeah, I love that movie.
I mean, I
So,
think he's a great director. I think he's a great writer. If he does not do Happy Death Day 3, I'm going to be really pissed.
I know. I've been yearning for that movie for years now. And every
I
time I
know.
ask, it just get a I'm hoping. So
I mean, just throw it on Netflix or something. I don't know, but like you set that up. I need to find out what happens.
yeah.
I want to see when that girl, I don't remember her name, but when they were going to utilize her. Oh,
Yeah.
she was so funny. Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah.
I love both of them. I thought they were so good.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can talk about a little bit about Lost Boys because this is apparently people talk about this a lot just because they were the Lost Boys and there are a bunch of boys hanging out together who felt like they didn't belong and they were kind of palling around. But I think you and I talked last week when I mean I was in college when I saw it, but I remember thinking like Jason Patrick like palling around with Corey Haim. I know they were supposed to be brothers, but in my head I'm like I know they're not related. But there's a couple of scenes where they're real close.
Yeah.
And they're just like almost too close and the still trying to come out college boy lusting after Jason Patrick.
Get in line.
I was like, oof. I was like, could he be my like stepbrother? I don't know, but I was very jealous of Corey Haim. That's all I'm saying.
And if you look at like Sam's bedroom too, we talked about that as well. Like, I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot of questions there.
And his clothes. I mean, I know 80s clothes were weird. And I had a lot, but I was gay. So of course I had clothes like he had too. But yeah, that was a little bizarre.
The Rob Lowe with the half shirt on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was a very interesting choice. I really kind of want to know the discussion about it. Yeah. Is there a commentary track on the
I know there's one on the Blu-ray. I don't know if he's on it though.
But I wonder if anybody talks about it.
I don't know.
I'm gonna have to check it out.
I wonder because I know Paul Davis, who he's done like a ton of stuff on American Werewolf over the years. He also did a Lost Boys book a few years ago. I wonder if I never got a chance to read the book because it was like a limited print thing, and it was like, here's 500 copies. When they're gone, they're gone. And then apparently he had he did another run of them earlier this year that I missed again.
Oh God.
So unless I want to spend $200 on a book, I'll just never know. But I'm wondering if he dove into that at all, because I mean, there's a valid conversation to be had there.
Yeah. I mean, Joel Schumacher, there you go. He
Yeah,
was gay as well. And, you know, they with the saxophone guy with the oiled up, you know, hot body. I mean, he was certainly giving the girls and the guys and the gay guys something to look at. And also, as much as in the closet, and I knew what I was at the time, Jamie Gertz.
mm,
Love Jamie Gertz. I had a crush on her for years and years and years. She was kind of like my beard when I was like faking it. I'd be
mm.
like, oh, I love Jamie Gertz. But the thing is, I kind of still did. I really did. I mean, I didn't want to like sleep with her, but like I wanted to be her best friend. I wanted to like hang around with her,
Fair.
especially like Less Than Zero when she had this cool outfits on all the time. She was like,
Yeah,
she looked amazing in freaking Lost Boys too, with her cool hippie skirts and stuff.
yeah. She was kind of like a tragic mess in Less Than Zero.
Yeah,
Where
but
like you're
pretty.
like, oh, look at that outfit, but oh boy, is that the
Right,
outfit you
stop
want to
doing
be
the
doing
coke.
coke in? Yeah.
One of my all-time favorite movies, by the way, like in my top 10, for sure.
Every time I watch the ending, though, that's it.
Hmm.
When they're driving in the car
Uh-huh.
and Robert Downey Jr. slumps over.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah.
I remember when I first saw it, I mean, I was sad, but I didn't react. And then I got home and I was lying on my bed and I thought about it and then just burst into tears.
Uh,
It was a very strange reaction.
it's
But yeah.
it's and it's crazy to watch it in retrospect now, knowing the things that he went through in his life, and that could have been his path.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why at some point, like before it got really bad for him, somebody didn't sit him down and make him watch the movie and be like, do you not understand?
Right.
Like, this is where you're heading,
Yeah.
you know? So thankfully he was able to sort of pull it together. But yeah, that movie still breaks my heart.
Hmm. And
So
it's so well shot. I know this is off subject, but
I
like
know.
the score is beautiful. It's well shot. Oh, it's such a good movie. Anyway, but yes, Jamie Gertz in Lost Boys, completely in love.
I get it. I get it. Yeah.
She's center on
Amazing.
my shirt right here. Hi, Jamie.
Well, and I think too, like when you go back and look at a lot of 80s horror, again, it may not have been stuff that was sort of overt. But I think there's so many films like of that time where you can go back and sort of have that read, that it's extremely valid, you know. And then I think there's also conversation to be had about movies that were trying to be progressive, but maybe didn't do it in ways that are sensitive to today's standards. Because one of my all-time favorite movies growing up, and what I mentioned earlier, was Sleepaway Camp.
Hmm.
Um, Unfortunately, now when you look at that movie within sort of the lens of modern society, like it brings up a very harmful stereotype of, you know, trans equaling the killer. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like where you're supposed to fear the trans person, and
Right.
that's obviously not what we want.
Yep.
But as a kid, like I just, and it's again, it's weird because like I can remember like watching Sleepaway Camp, and like I remember when I was 10, my friend's dad took us to see Rocky Horror Picture Show at midnight because we'd heard about it, but I'd never seen it. And I was like, well, I want to go see a midnight movie. That sounds cool. And I was a night owl kid anyway. So I was like, sure, let's do this. Um, but these things, like they clicked, but they didn't click until I got a little bit
Yeah.
older. And now it's like, you know, and I think there's a discussion to be had about why these things ended up being important to people during those times, because there wasn't a lot of media out there. There wasn't a lot of representation. You know, there was, you know, everybody still sort of, even if you're out, there's still probably parts of their lives that they couldn't be fully out and
Yeah.
fully be who they wanted to be. So it's like, it's interesting to go back and look at these things now where like, you're like, this movie was important for the time it was released in, but ultimately, like, we need to have a conversation about how you recontextualize it now.
For sure.
You
And
know,
you know, I'm not going to say the name of the movie because just in case people see it, I don't want to spoil anything. But we were talking about, I think you and I talked about this. There's that Spanish movie that has a twist that came out last year that had a twist that you're like, oh, I
mm,
don't know in this day and age if this is a good twist. There's like one line that tries to like be the woke moment for one character, kind of like excuses it, But I remember thinking like, oh, I really loved this movie until that. And I was like, oh, I don't know if this is appropriate. Do you know what I'm talking about? We talked about this.
I think we did, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. I always forget the name of it. It's like the apartment number is what it's called. It's like, or the street, something street.
Oh,
Kaye.
I can see
It's
the
on
art.
Shudder too.
I know, I can see the art.
Yep. Kid standing in front of the door.
Yes, I can see it, and it's not coming to me. We have failed. Sorry.
We have failed, and I
We're
never
sorry,
can
viewers.
remember. Store, apartment. No, it's the street name. Anyway, here's what I wanted to make a
I'm
comment
going
about.
to stealthily looking that up on Shudder.
You do that while I'm going to tell. And this is a little off the gay subject, but I watched Sleepaway Camp for the first time this year.
Okay.
And I knew, I think we talked about this. I knew there was some sort of trans aspect, but I did think it was the mother of that person or the person's aunt or whatever.
Oh,
I thought it
Desiree
was a guy.
Gould.
Yeah, I thought
Aunt
it was a
Martha.
guy playing that. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, that's what it is, which was good that I thought that, because then the end was a surprise to me.
You really had a surprise.
Yeah, because there was part of me that's like, maybe, because I feel like maybe I'm not, that can't be really the whole thing. But I kept on thinking she was gonna come one killing everybody too. That went through my mind. But what the most disturbing thing about that movie was how many adults, and they played it for laughs, were like lusting after middle school children.
Yeah.
I'm like,
and
it's
that
a
back
middle
then
school
was like
camp.
yeah, that was a bad thing back then. Like you could joke about stuff like that. Like I remember like you'd be at like family things and somebody's like your uncle's weird friend would make a comment like, oh, wait till she's 16. Like that makes it any better. And you're like,
Right.
what?
I was like, my mouth kept on dropping up. I'm like, oh my God, this is so gross.
32 Malasana Street.
Yes, that's it.
There we go.
So I actually really loved that movie because I actually felt it was effectively scary, even though it doesn't like rewrite the rules of how to do a scare. But
Yeah,
it worked for me. Like I kept on jumping or I'd get like creeped out. But I felt like they kind of could have done something different with the end.
yeah. I will say though that Shudder, you see a lot of companies and things like that. Like once June hits, they're putting out all of their queer content.
Yeah.
Shudder does it year round.
Yeah.
Like they don't just pick a month. They're just constantly bringing, good quality content for all viewers.
Yep.
So I wanted to tip my hat to them because I made you watch Knife and Heart, which I like. I love that you called it aggressively artsy because you're not wrong at all. You're not wrong at all. But it made me laugh, and I was like, oh, that's very true.
It reminded me of movies like from the late 80s that I would like when I was trying out the artsy stuff. I would see it and I'm like, oh, these are weird. Like, because it was new to me, I didn't understand that. So it reminded me a little bit of that. So
are you a fan of Jolly movies in general, or are they sort of hit or miss for you?
They're hit or miss.
Okay.
Like I get it. I understand why people like them and I understand there's a beauty to them. I'm just not a big blood and guts person.
Okay. I'm more about the murder mystery elements to it because that's kind of what Jelly is. It's just like, okay, who's the killer?
And I
love
do
the Scream
appreciate
movies,
it.
so.
I mean, again, I didn't hate Knife and Heart. I just was like, I'm like, yep, this is what I thought it was going to be. But I feel like I figured it out really early on because I'm like, well, something's been mentioned a lot, but at the same time, I kept on like doubting myself. So that was good. And I mean, it kept my interest. Like I wasn't bored. I told you, the opening scene was, this guy picks somebody up and then, the kid, he looked young. So we'll say the twink. Twink was like excited to be having sex with this person and then gets killed for it. And I was like, do I want to watch this? Do I need to see gay people feeling guilty for getting it almost seemed like they were getting punished for enjoying something. But I was glad that I stuck with it because that was probably the most violent scene.
Yeah, I think that was the one that sort of had to get your attention.
Yeah.
To kind of pull you in. Yeah, that's.
But I thought, like we talked yesterday, I thought that there was a interesting AIDS metaphor about it too. I mean,
Yeah.
it took place shortly before that occurred, but it did seem to be that there was a lot more going on underneath that. You know, it's funny though, is I totally blanked that she was Johnny Depp's ex-wife, and now Lily Rose Depp's mom.
I didn't even realize.
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah. And like I remember, I'm like, how do I? Because I kept on thinking she was just this actress that I've seen over the years. But then I was like, wait a second, she's a singer, isn't she? And I looked it up, and she's a singer. She's married to Johnny Depp. They have a kid, and she was in that space movie that just came out in January.
Oh,
The one with
okay.
Colin Farrell, Voyagers.
Yes. Yes.
Voyagers. And she does kind of look like her. It's interesting that she looks like both of them.
Huh.
Yeah,
Interesting.
she's very pretty. Mhm.
Oh,
So I like. I
gotcha.
mean, again, it was interesting. I appreciate it. I'm glad you made me watch it. I've told you I've had the vinyl for years.
Which I can't believe. I'm like, oh my God, I would listen
It
to
was
that
sent to
all
me
the
for
time.
free, and I like M83 or whatever they're called.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I
but I
love
didn't.
M83.
I don't like. I listened to the Oblivion soundtrack over the Knife and Heart soundtrack.
All right. Well, we'll
so
do
if
a mask for soundtrack swap one time, and
I will give you. You can have the Knife and Heart soundtrack. I will save it for you for sure. If you have a vinyl record player,
I
you're more than-
do.
you're more than
do.
welcome to it. It's in its wrapping still too.
I'll find something good, and we'll do a good swap or something.
Okay. All right.
So yeah,
Sounds
I'm
good
trying to
to me.
think of. I know we were on a schedule a little bit tonight.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you mentioned Shudder, so we can say like Spiral's on there too,
Yes.
which is about a gay couple who move into a neighborhood. It seems like it's going to be Get Out, and it is and it isn't.
Right.
Wasn't bad, didn't totally do it for me, but I felt like there was some. I was glad to kind of see it.
Yeah.
And then and again, I know you and I keep on saying this to you. What is the name of the movie I like?
What is which one are you talking
The
about?
lesbians in the running
Oh,
around.
What Keeps You Alive?
They really should have come up with a better name. What Keeps You Alive? There's that other one like We Are What We Are, and I keep on getting it all confused.
I get it. I get it.
What Keeps You Alive? Girlfriends go to a cabin in the woods, and
Everything
don't
goes
go well.
sideways. Yes.
Yeah, and it's so good.
Yeah.
Like the action is amazing. Like it is suspenseful as all get out. I loved it. And it was. I think that's a female director.
No, that's Colin
that's
Minihan.
right. That's right. You corrected me on this already.
Sorry.
So that's good. But lesbian characters, which is good representation. The movie The Retreat just came out, and that's about similar lesbian couple going to visit their gay couple friends who are planning their wedding, and then that doesn't go as
things
planned
go
either.
bad. I mean, it's horror movie, so you know things are going to go bad at some point.
Yep. And that one's strictly that. I mean, that one's very like, we don't like gays, and but then the gays do pick up a sledgehammer or two.
They get it
matters
back
into their own terms. Yes, exactly. We're
yeah,
gonna get you.
Yeah, I'm gonna be all right over here.
Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane, Heather.
I'm gonna stay in my lane. But yeah, I think what's also interesting is I think one of the reasons that we're getting more films these days is because we have directors coming in who are able to sort of draw on their own experiences, or at least collaborate with people who have these experiences.
Yeah.
And people are willing to talk about it more now.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, I think is when you get more insightful horror, because anybody who says that like there's no social agenda to horror, like I can name 50 movies from the 80s that you need to rewatch right now because you missed a lot of stuff.
There's so much social agenda in
Yeah.
horror. I mean, horror is always an analogy for something.
It is. I mean, it's the best. It's sort of the best vehicle you can find to make a statement about something without actually talking about what you're talking about.
Right.
Because nobody was going to go and bluntly make a movie about Reaganomics in the 80s, but John Carpenter is going to make They Live.
Yep.
So, it always kind of blows my mind when people are like, oh, there's no, keep your politics out of horror. And I was like, well, since when? Like even in the 70s, like when, you have stuff with like Roe versus Wade, like waging on in the country and stuff like that. And then you have a movie like Rosemary's Baby, like, hello, or you have Invasion of the Body Snatchers, that you have a generation of people who are coming out of the 60s, you know, and they're free love, and all of a sudden now they're like having to settle down and have like careers and families, and they're, you know, like this fight against sort of the system of marriage in America and things like that. Like, I'm like, I don't know. People just need to sort of pay attention more. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I
So,
agree. I agree.
yeah. So, but I think that's what's great about horror is that I think ultimately, like, there is a place for everybody here. And if you're somebody who doesn't feel like you have somewhere that you can find your own space, there's so many fans out there that are willing to make the room for you.
Mhm.
And I think that's what's great. Like, if you look at like a site like Gaily Dreadful, which right now they're going under Gaily Helpful, and every year Terry does a thing for June where he donates to the Trans Life Hotline.
Nice.
And every year, like, his movement grows a little bit. And like this year, I think he's got over 60 something articles going up throughout the month. They've already raised over $8,000 for it,
Wow.
which is amazing, because I think last year, I think they capped off at like 5,200.
Wow.
And he's only
That's
halfway
nice.
through the month. And I just think it's like, for me, that makes me really happy as a fan to see that we're, you know, again, we get so grossly misunderstood by so many people outside that they don't
Yeah.
understand that, like, you know, we're not scary people. We just like scary stuff, and we
Yeah.
care about things, you know. And I actually think horror fans are probably the most empathetic, because we watch so many messed up things that we just can't help but want to make the world a better place, maybe, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I feel like there's a lot more horror fans than people let on to.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I think everybody loves a good horror movie. Because when I meet people who are like, oh, I don't like horror movies, I'm like, really? Like nothing? Like there's
Yeah.
got to be one that you like. That's
Now
just
those
weird.
people are sort of in the minority. Whereas like maybe when we were growing up, everyone, you know.
Yeah, when we were growing up, for sure. I mean, it's even like superhero movies when we were growing up. Aside from like Superman, like they were the nerdy thing. Sci-fi
Yeah.
was nerdy, but now that's all. I mean, Comic-Con used to be, you know, card tables in like a gymnasium, and
And
now
now,
you can't even get there without having to walk 1,000 miles after you've parked for $50 somewhere.
yeah, absolutely.
And like, you know, like this, trying to get through people
And
because
not touch
everybody's into it.
everybody. Yeah.
You know, like Game of Thrones, that became like a huge thing that would never have taken off in the 80s.
Yeah.
It's the nerd thing, you know.
Nerds have taken over. Yes, our time
Nerd
is
gaze.
now.
We're
Oh
gonna
boy,
take over everything.
you are in your prime now. Your time is now.
Yeah, don't have much time left, so
Sparkle our little diamond. Go out there.
I shall.
Yes.
Oh well, all right. Well, we should probably wrap this up. So I will say, I guess, thank you everybody for watching and letting us ramble on about gays in movies, or the LGBTQ plus people and directors and storylines and all that. And there's a lot out there. So go check it out. And we'll be talking. What are we talking about next week?
Werewolves.
Oh, werewolves. Yay. My other
Yes.
favorite thing. Yep.
Yes.
Gays and werewolves, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a weird transition. I
Yeah.
tried.
But I think there's in the movie that we're going to be talking about next week, there is a gay couple.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Yep. I think I'm watching it again tomorrow.
I'm watching it again too before the show. So
Yahoo.
as you can tell, this is probably an indication of how this discussion is going to go. So we're both giggling like a bunch of like school kids right now. We're like, oh, we're going to watch the movie again. Like, there's not a lot of movies that you watch for work where you're like, oh, I'm going to watch it again.
Yeah.
So, you know, we get excited when we get one.
Yep. All right. So look forward to that. Next week, we're going to talk werewolves, a lot about werewolves. And for myself, I will say good night. And Heather, say good night.
Good night, Heather.
Nice.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Bye.